Hello everyone. In this video I'm going to talk about 5 basic truths or 5 principles that govern everything within the universe, the manifestation that we are a part of. I had mentioned these in my introduction video where I discussed the revival plan. Today I'm going to talk a little bit more detail about these 5 principles. So I call them the 5 basic truths. So the first one is the controller. For anything that is created or manifested, there must be a controller in place. So that's one of the axiomatic truths that Vedic Scriptures are based upon, and that's a very reasonable and practical starting point to describe the material nature, the material world, or the universal manifestation. We'll talk a lot more about the controller and his various uh, potencies, capacities, and energies in more detail later. But here in this short video, I'm going to mention that the controller basically has two types of energies working within this world. The Sanskrit word for controller is Ishvara. The two energies that are described are the material nature and living entities. So, the living entities and material nature are the two fundamentally distinct energies that are operating in this world, and it's really the interaction between the two which is what the world is meant for. So, the living entities are referred to as jivas, material nature is called as prakriti. There's interaction between the two, and as a result of that interaction, different activities in all species of life come into being, and these activities are referred to as karma within the Vedic paradigm. Karma is not only the activities which is manifest, which is currently manifest, but it actually is a pretty broad idea. It covers all activities that have been done in the past, and also activities not manifest yet, which are about to come in future. So it's a all-encompassing idea or a concept about activities of living entities. But the activities are continuously evolving; they are not static. So another factor which is involved in which governs the evolution is called time. Time is referred to as kala in Vedic philosophy, and kala is an energy or an aspect of reality that acts both on the material nature and as a result also on the activities. It governs the evolution of activities of living entities. We'll also see in future that Prakriti is constituted of 24 elements of Sankhya. So I'm not going to get into Sankhya or the description of the 24 elements here, but we'll do that in a different video at a later time. But I just want to give a high level perspective over here. And the point of relevance in relation to modern science or the modern way of understanding reality is that the scientific paradigm deals with only 10 out of these 24 elements mentioned on this slide here, and that too in a very crude approximate manner. How that is so we'll see later on, but the idea here is, or the message here is, that Vedic description of the material world or material nature is actually a very detailed account and a very relevant, pertinent account, and you can say with good amount of confidence that it's also a much more accurate description of the world and also much more complete description of the world. The modern scientific approach, because of the approach that it takes, it actually eliminates most of the factors that constitute reality, and that gives us a very incomplete picture or understanding of reality. So we'll get into those particulars at a later time. So what constitutes the material world is these four aspects, or the four out of these five truths or principles that we just talked about. That's what the material world constitutes of. It's the living entities interacting with material nature, manifesting activities, and everything is being governed by time. And by time, the factor, the evolution takes place. Things are in a constant churn. Things seem to be changing all the time. The controller's position is actually quite interesting because it is from the controller, or on account of the controller, everything that is manifest is actually manifest. That means the material world exists because there is a controller in place. Controller is same as the creator, or creator is the controller. Creator and controller is which give rise to the material world in the first place. So naturally they are part of the picture, but at the same time they are kind of aloof. The controller is aloof from the workings of the material world, of this all this interaction that's taking place between jivas and prakriti, in the sense that the controller is present as a witness, is looking over everything, watching everything that's going on, but not really intimately involved in the workings. So it's like a huge giant machine that is set up, and the machine just goes on automatically by the controller's potency, but the controller doesn't have to involve in each and every tiny small thing, but everything is being organized by his different energies. So that's the basic idea. So simultaneously he's present in the material world, but he's also out of it, outside of it. So that's the position of the controller. The purpose of the way, before I get to the purpose, the current position of the living entities is that when they are deeply absorbed in the workings of the material world and material nature, then they are basically lost in a so-called whirlpool. Whirlpool consisting of karma of material nature evolving under the influence of time. Is they're deeply absorbed into what's going on around them, so much so that they have completely lost all cognizance of the controller. So the basic state of the living entities in the world is that they are not fully cognizant of the controller. And the purpose of the Vedic scriptures is to actually remedy that situation, is to bring us back in touch with the controller. That's the basic purpose of the Vedic scriptures. And that is brought about in a natural manner. It's not artificial, it's not like a superimposed, a compulsory, or like a mandatory thing, but it just evolves naturally when one begins to understand the Vedic philosophy and the Vedic way of life. So all living entities, and there's no exception, they are engaged in acts of service. All our activities can be summarized, if they can be summarized in one word, then that is that of service. Every living being is inclined or naturally positioned to do service to someone else or something else, and that is natural, it comes naturally to all of us. But the service attitude is directed in so many different ways that doesn't really benefit the living entities in the long term. So the Vedic scriptures tell us that since we already have this mood of service, this aptitude for service naturally within us, they direct us to the perfection of service, which is to direct that service attitude towards the controller, towards the Ishvara. And that, when done, it actually re-manifests an eternal relationship that exists between the controller and all living entities. And it is only when we do this that one can be completely satisfied in life, one can be happy and contented in life, one can also understand the ultimate nature of reality, that as it really exists. So it's a very natural process and a natural outcome. The results flow very naturally. But this point has to be understood, that what is going on in this world, what the world actually consists of, how are we positioned in this world, and what is really the purpose that the Vedic scriptures are directing us towards. So once again, it is the spirit of service that should be directed towards the Supreme Controller, which is when it reaches perfection, and that achievement of perfection is goal of human life, or that is what the purpose of the living entities being situated in the world is. I'll talk a lot more about that in upcoming videos in different parts, but that is what I wanted to convey in this particular video. So perfection of service, eternal relationship with the controller. Thank you, and see you next time.